you mentioned all these angry people, some of whom are real, some of whom are not real. Let's think about the real ones. The ones who are really angry or let's say emotional. I mean, they're humans, right? It's normal.
Yeah.
It's because you always say everybody has their hopes and dreams in their portfolio, right? In the crypto portfolio. Is it realistic for people to put all their hope and dreams in their crypto portfolio or in a crypto trade?
No, it's not realistic. But it's the only answer people can find. Because you can say the other way, which is, oh, just get a second job or a third job. They're already doing 3 jobs. What is the answer? And I can't find one because we can't change the political system. We can't change the debasement of currency to pay for the debt. How do we give them a chance? Would you give them handouts? Possible. Or do you give them access to the casino? It's not the best answer. Because crypto at core, those people who are more desperate tend to go further down the casino route, as opposed to, and you mentioned this a lot in your X posts, is it's a slow game, but people want it to happen immediately. But really, if you just said, hey, in 10 years' time, I could probably 20x my money, I mean, that's la la land performance versus anything else. But people don't want to do it. They want 20x their money this month or this year. And then they break it down and they delude themselves that they only have the time of the cycle or this quarter or this trade. And it's like, and then people just get angry because it doesn't work. And it doesn't work. It's never worked.
There's an entire section on that today, actually. So I didn't get that sick and travel that much for nothing. I went on the field, talked to people in the Silicon Valley, and really grasped this much more long-term view. And today we're going to discuss that because I think it's really important for people to understand, and they don't want to.
They don't want to.
They don't want to.
And you see a lot of the anger is, and we've talked about this in the past, is time horizon mismatch. It's like you can tell them where it's going. This adoption of technology is not stopping. And it's at 3 and a bit trillion today. It's going to 100 trillion. So we're 3% of the journey there. And I'm saying it's probably going to take 10 years. That's a huge trade. And everyone's like, but what about today? The market went down.
What do you tell someone a hater? I saw one the other day. I saw many.
Hating you or hating me?
Hating you.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
I'm so touched.
For me, they hate, mostly what they hate. I don't take too much risk. I'm kind of like this neutral Swiss dude asking questions, right? Today I'll take a bit more risk. I'll talk a bit more. But what they hate on is my accent. It's fine. I'm like, I'm used to it. They're like, I don't understand anything to what you say. Whatever, it's fine. But I saw one who basically said the classic, you're again saying zoom out when things don't go well, right? Basically, they're saying that you use the zoom out excuse and it's too easy as an excuse to use when things are not doing as well as we hope in the short term. What do you tell someone like that?
So the short term is more dominated by noise or shorter term factors. The long term is driven by the 2 key factors, network adoption and debasement of currency. So it's much more forecastable, probabilistically so. The short term is less so. So of course, the short term deviates from the long term often, always does. And people don't want to believe that. So, right, everyone put their hopes and dreams into the M2 chart. I said it's not going to always work perfectly. Everyone reads that as Raoul says it's going to work perfectly and it's always going to match. So then it deviates. So then my job as a macro analyst is to figure out, why is it deviating? What's changed? And you see it deviating on lots of charts, from monetary measures to historical parallels. And it's like, okay, something here has happened that I don't quite understand. So I then do the work on it. And I figure out, okay, this was to do with the and we can talk about the details of it, the withdrawal of liquidity as the Treasury built the general account. And so it's like, okay, it's understandable. We see what's going on. So you adjust your understanding of where you are in that long-term trend and what's going on. And then they had the government shutdown. People don't see that. They think it should all work perfectly. It never can do, because the short term always has a lot more noise to signal ratio, and the long term has all of the signal to noise ratio.
I actually saw a bunch of very smart people who, I mean, a lot of these people who are in crypto now, they're previous TradFi people, especially traders. And they're saying, obviously, these crypto markets are maturing, changing. There's more and more institutions, which means that the more institutions, the more professional traders using AI and all that stuff, which basically says that there's almost no alpha anymore in crypto, except in the long term. So the only thing you can do is kind of buy and hold as a normal investor, right? Or normal trader, and bet on this long-term trend that you're talking about.
So I've seen this all before. I left the hedge fund industry back in 2004 because of this. So back in 2004, I was doing macro. Macro had been a higher volatile strategy, and it was longer term, because what macro means is you're basically trading around macroeconomics, economic forces. Now, there's one ISM data piece or one GDP day space a quarter, one ISM a month. You're using one data piece. So really you need a string of data pieces over a period of time to make a trend. So you're talking about a minimum trade of 6 months. Maybe at turning points, you might get a 3-month trade, but really it's 18 months to 3 years. That's what macro really is. And then what I realized is, as new investors came into the hedge fund investing space, they forced everybody into monthly mark to market. And then you were judged is how much did you go up or down that month? Not how are you doing over the year or how's that trade doing? And what you found is it didn't matter whether you bought something here and it had gone up there. If it had drawn down against you a bit that month and you're still well in profits, you actually closed the trade. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, nobody's going to make money like this. What it did was crush volatility and lowered everybody's returns. And the same is happening in crypto today. It got worse with macro because then the rise of the systems funds and the high frequency traders and everything else. So macro lost all of its edge from short-term trading. And I left to start Global Macro Investor to prove the point that longer-term time horizons win. And GMI is now easily the best performing research service in history. And that's with some terrible times when it as well. But it just proves that time horizon is the single best thing that you've got.
Mm. High underrated. Absolutely.
It is. But people are impatient and people want to do stuff. They want to trade around. Mm. And you don't need it. Find your adrenaline somewhere else.
This is a hard one for the ADHD generation.
Yeah. Yeah, because everything's a computer game, right?
Mm, absolutely. The reason why people are angry is because 2025 has been a bit tough or difficult for crypto investors. And the last few years also, I would say, if you were not in the right coins, which were not that many, you actually didn't do that well, right? There's no up only everything anymore.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It's because I keep trying to explain to people, it's all about liquidity. It's the most dominant macro factor of all time right now. It's one game. One game is, what is liquidity doing? The second game we overlay in crypto is, what is the adoption of the particular token asset you're using? Whether it's a layer 2, a layer 1, an applications layer, DeFi, whatever it is. It's like, what's the speed of adoption on top of what's the amount of debasement going on? That's the whole game we're in. So people need to figure out that whole game. Then it gets a little bit complicated, because how do we get liquidity? So liquidity in the traditional crypto speak was quantitative easing. They're printing money, but they stopped doing that. And then you had to figure out, it's FedNet liquidity, which is the Treasury General Account and the reverse repo. And if you think about that being the only liquidity that was in the system, they drained the reverse repo. And the Treasury General Account is a checking account that they fill up, drain, fill up, drain. So this keeps going up and down. Doesn't actually help with liquidity. This draining of the reverse repo was the liquidity that we saw. So the liquidity kind of rate of change has been low. So that's one element. Liquidity rate of change has been low. Then we've had an extension to the cycle. People said there was like some Satoshi from the gods said, there shall be a 4-year cycle. It shall be so. That's bullshit. There has to be a reason for it. It's the same reason the ISM was a perfect cycle. It's the same reason the NASDAQ year-on-year rate of change is a perfect cycle, all the same. They're all driven by this debt cycle we've talked about from 2008 They reset interest rates to zero. All major countries put their debt into the 3 to 5 year bucket. And so every 4 years, we roll the debt.
Mm.
Now, I start looking at why is the business cycle not picking up? Why is my thesis not working? While the online attackers like, see, his thesis is bullshit. My job is to say, why? To understand why it's not working. And then so I did the foundational work back again of the everything code. And we found that in 2021 and 2022, they'd actually lengthened the duration because rates went back down to zero, and they lengthened the duration of the debt maturity to 5 years, just over 5 years. And then it's like, oh, I get it. Normally, year 4 of the cycle is when they have to do all the printing. It's the year of the most amount of debt refi payments. Now it's gone out a year to year 5. So it's 2026. So kind of that's what I'm looking at within this whole structure and trying to understand why it's been slow is because liquidity wasn't required yet. The liquidity really is required in 2026 because we've got $10 trillion to roll. So it's really been that. There's also more tokens in the market.
Yeah.
And so to find the thing that's getting traction requires work or astuteness in sifting through tens of thousands of assets prices, which is why I always say don't do that. Use the don't fuck this up thesis and just make it easy for yourself. Own mainly big stuff. Don't go too far out the risk curve. And if you do it with a small amount of money. You and I have talked about this endlessly.
Yeah.
And endlessly people go to me, well, you fucked up this cycle. Where was my banana zone? My tokens are down 90%. I'm like, where did I tell you to do that?
Mm. So there is kind of 2 layers, liquidity that comes or goes, etc. But on average, throughout a long period of time, it goes up, right?
Yes.
But then there's these tokens, there's too many of them. Liquidity cannot save. At some point, a couple of years ago, everything would go up like crazy, even if you bought shit, right? Today, with all these tokens, liquidity cannot save everyone's ass. I think that's an important message.
Correct.
So there is a lot of these tokens, despite more liquidity, that will make people lose money.
Yeah.
Because they're bad investments.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. They're bad investments. They're not being used. Sure, some can become memes and they can capture attention for a period of time, but persistence in memes is very difficult. And then what people don't understand is there's even a risk curve amongst the major tokens.
Absolutely.
So Bitcoin, it drew down, 30%. Ethereum was 40%. Solana was 50%. Sui was 60%, 65%. They're all a risk curve depending on how mature they are and how many users they have and the depth of the markets.